Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Smith with John L. Scott Real Estate.
And I'm Brandon Christensen with Dwell Mortgage.
All right, so purpose of this video is we really wanted to have a video for our first-time home buyers, but also for our people that haven't bought a house in a while either. You know, the market's always changing. And this video is not going to be specific to 2023, but it will definitely be specific to the market that we've been
Yeah.
experiencing these past few years and what we anticipate the next couple years also.
You know what I've learned, Jeff, kind of buying a few houses myself?
Yeah.
No matter how many times I do it, it always feels like it's the first time.
Oh yeah, same.
Right?
Yeah.
'Cause I mean, things change, interest rates change, the
Yeah.
market changes, mortgage rules change, a
Yeah.
lot of changes in real estate in
Yeah.
general. So, being a first-time home buyer or a seasoned home buying veteran, a lot of the basic principles of home ownership and going through the home buying process apply to everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what today's going to be about is more the overall purchase process. Of course, when it comes down to buying the house, we'll
Yeah.
go over the specifics more in detail with you guys individually. So, to kick things off, basically, I got started in the business back February 2020, right before the world shut down. It's
Lucky
been
you,
a,
Jeff.
yeah,
Lucky you. What a treat.
yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely was wondering if I'd made the right career choice at that point, but it took off and it's been a wild ride ever since. How about you?
Well, I've been in the business for a while prior to the shutdown, the pandemic shutdown, but there's nothing quite like, Jeff, while you were talking, I had to bring this up because it reminded me of the virtual open house.
Oh yes.
That's something
Yeah.
that we saw during the pandemic. Jeff was brand new in the business. People
Yeah.
weren't allowed out of their house or in other people's homes
Yeah, that
for a
was weird.
period of time.
Yeah.
So to buy a house, you had to go through a virtual open house if you wanted to see it. But as for
Hmm.
me specifically, Jeff, been in finance. I've been in the finance sector, I guess is the word the pros use,
Yeah.
for it's been 15 years now
Okay.
in one form or another. I started out kind of working with businesses, then I did some retail banking, and then I did some lending on the business side. And I've been in the residential mortgage business since 2016 specifically.
Awesome.
So a lot of time under my belt, learned a lot of things, made some mistakes, but hey, that's why we're
We all
here
have.
and we're doing these videos and talking about stuff is because there's no way to learn unless you've been through it a few times.
Yep.
And we have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Any notable accomplishments or reward or awards or
Hey,
anything like that during that time?
the reward is just getting to work
Oh,
with you,
of course. Yes.
Jeff,
Oh,
and you
thanks.
watching this video. No, I mean, I am a certified mortgage advisor, which is a course that I completed several years ago, actually, right around the same time you got started, Jeff, right during the pandemic.
Awesome.
It was kind of an upper level, learn how mortgages work as far as like interest rates and the money involved in the mortgage process because it's not something you really understand when you go through the process as a consumer like I have buying and selling houses, but there's a lot going on there when it comes to money and what makes interest rates tick and how they all work. And so yeah,
Yeah.
that's one big thing that I pride myself on is having a deeper, higher level of knowledge when it comes to understanding the markets and understanding interest rates and really understanding how to personalize your mortgage so that it fits your financial needs.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. For myself, I have my certified negotiation
Yeah, you got
expert
a whole long list
designation.
of things,
I
Jeff.
wouldn't say that,
Actually,
but
he didn't tell me he was going to ask me about my accomplishments, or else I would have, because he's got a list. I got one thing. CMA.
well, CNE, anyways, I think that's super important if you're working with an agent, whether it's here in Washington or in a completely other state or country. The CNE is super important because that's what we do as realtors throughout the whole transaction is negotiate for you. It's not just your purchase price. There's so many other things that we're going to get into later in this video. So many negotiation touch points.
Can I say something real quick, Jeff? I feel
Yeah,
like it's underplayed the importance of having an experienced negotiator on your side when you're going through a real estate transaction.
yeah,
From like the outside looking in, it can seem like a pretty easy process, right? Like you
yeah,
find a house, we're going to talk about this, but you find a house, you make an offer, you close.
yeah.
It's not like that,
No,
right? There's a lot of little steps along the way where having a certified negotiation expert,
yeah,
somebody that knows how to get your best interests to the forefront and win with those best interests in mind is almost more important than a lot of things when it comes to buying a house, because there's a lot of ways you can save money, a lot of ways you can come out ahead when you have somebody that's negotiating on your behalf and they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So
It's
that's why I
huge.
got it. I feel like it's super important. Awards, I've gotten a John L. Scott Production Award every year I've been in the business, which is just based on a certain number of sales and up.
That's what they
So
call being a natural. Yeah,
I guess.
just natural.
Um, so what really got you into the lending world?
That's a great question. Like I said, I spent some time working with businesses on the financial side of things, and I enjoyed it. And there was a lot to learn there about how businesses function, how they make money, margins, and all that stuff. And it was interesting to me. However, it was missing a key component that I really am passionate about, and that's the emotion of the home buying process and the
Yeah,
experience. What I learned on the business side is it's all math at the end of the day. Like whether
yeah,
you're going to buy something or sell a piece of equipment or finance something or use it as a tax write off, it's all about numbers, which is cool. And that works for a lot of people. But I really, really am passionate about the excitement of buying a house and what that means to somebody who thought they'd never be able to do it.
yeah, that's true.
Like you don't
That's a
have
lot of
that
fun.
on the business side, and like you don't have the intense excitement and exhilaration and joy
Yeah,
that a personal home buyer experiences,
yep,
even when they're buying their fifth home. I've had some people that have looked back and been like, I never thought I'd get to this point where I have the
yeah,
house of my dreams.
yeah,
And it might have taken them 3 or 4 houses to get there, but that's the beauty of real estate. We're going to
yeah.
talk about
Oh
that,
yeah,
right? But it's a personal experience, and they're invested. I'm invested in my clients personally, and they're invested in the experience personally, and it's a personal connection. And that's why I'm in residential real estate instead
yeah,
of doing business stuff, because it's just that much more impactful.
exactly. Yep.
Totally.
Yeah, that's what I really appreciate about it also.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we could be selling cars or something, but
I
cars
sold
are cool.
motorcycles
Yeah,
for a
you
long
sold
time.
motorcycles.
It's a really fun business, but yeah, and I grew up riding motorcycles. I loved it. But to me, at the end of the day, the home is, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a much more impactful
Of all the
experience.
things that I've sold in my life, I've sold a lot of things: alarm systems, baseball cards, whatever you name it, Jeff. I've
Yeah.
been selling things for the almost 2 decades now.
Yep.
Working with people buying houses is just a different level of fun,
It is.
and I
Yeah.
really enjoy it.
Yeah. Much more rewarding.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Um, a little bit about us before we dive into this. We'll talk about our hobbies and
Yeah,
then we'll
let's
go
do
from
it.
there, right? So, as some of you may have noticed already, if you watch any of our videos or anything like that, I brand myself a little bit outside of John L. Scott Venture Forth Realty. The reason I do that is John L. Scott's an awesome brokerage to work with. I have tons of tools at my disposal, a lot of education I get that helps out my clients, but I'm a little bit different than a lot of other agents, I feel like.
I
I love
agree.
the outdoors. I'm passionate about the area. There's just so much to do and see and explore in this beautiful state we live in. So there's that side of things. I love hiking, camping,
Mm.
overlanding, uh, hunting, fishing. I mean, you name it in the outdoors. I've probably done it or want to do it.
You're always on an adventure.
Yep. Yep. What about you?
Very much the same, Jeff. I mean, truth be told, I've got 5 children, so that's like my first passion in
Yep.
life, and that's where a lot of my energy and resources go to. The oldest is 14, the youngest is 8 months, 9 months old now.
Quite the range.
It's a big range. So we've got our hands full at home, but we still like doing a lot of things outdoors. We're a big sports family. We enjoy going to sporting events, playing sports. I'm an avid camper, just like Jeff is. Hiking, backpacking, bow hunting is one thing that I'm really passionate about. I typically go out once a year with
Awesome.
some buddies in the mountains and try and commune with nature,
Yeah.
which is really all we've been doing.
Yep.
It's hard.
Oh yeah, it is. All right. Well, you made it this far and you're gonna watch this video and work with Brandon and I. We're gonna drop a code word
Mm,
somewhat towards the end of the video that if you let us know, I'm going to give you a free home warranty up to $500. And home warranties are awesome in case you have a big time expense in your first year of home ownership.
We've always used our home warranty, Jeff.
Yeah,
Every
it's a
house we've
nice.
ever bought, we've had something happen in the first year that the home warranty came in clutch.
Yep, paid for itself. Yeah,
And more.
yeah,
$500,
yeah.
like what
Not
if you're anything going out on a house is more than $500 usually.
Usually, yeah, unfortunately. But so that's what I'm gonna do. If you give us the code word.
Yeah, and I'm gonna throw something in there too, if that's
Ooh,
okay with you,
yeah,
Jeff.
go
Let's
for it.
ante up, is I think what they say.
Yep.
We're gonna go ahead and if you mention the code word and you're moving forward in the home buying process, we're gonna go ahead and cover the cost of your appraisal, which
Oh, awesome.
that can
Yeah.
range anywhere from $500 to $800. And so
Yeah.
we're happy to help you cover that cost just to make it that much easier to go through the process and to work with Jeff and myself. So
Cool.
be on the lookout.
Yeah. So if you listen to us ramble for the next, I don't
Mhm.
know, half hour or 45 minutes or so.
And
Good.
no skipping forward.
Yeah. You could save yourself about $1,000
Yeah.
or more, so it'll be worth it.
We might say the code word a minute from now, could be 5 minutes from now. I
Yeah,
mean, we're gonna
yeah.
keep them guessing.
Yeah,
Jeff.
exactly.
Towards the end.
Yep. So, all right. Well, let's get into this.
Let's go.
Cool. So again, like we said, this is perfect for our first time home buyers or maybe somebody that hasn't bought a home in a while because it is a completely different market than it was
Yeah.
5, 10, 15 years ago. So you're going to learn about the home buying process, how we go through the process, and all that. So basically, step number 1, interview and pick a local agent to your area. Now, I primarily work Snohomish, Skagit, and Island County. I am licensed for the whole state, but depending on the situation, what area you're in,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I might end up referring you out if it's not going to be the ideal fit. But I have gone over to Kitsap, Mason County, Whatcom, know
You're headed
those
to
areas as
Kitsap
well.
today, Jeff.
Yeah, I
aren't
am.
you?
Yep. So I do kind of work all over the place, but there are certain areas that I like to specialize in some more. I'm sure it's probably the same with
Yeah,
you.
it's very similar. I think at the end of the day, what I like about what you said, Jeff, is like our first priority is ensuring that we're a good fit.
Yeah,
Like we want to do business with people that want to do business with us.
exactly.
Right? We don't want you to feel like, you're working with us because you have to. Like at the end of the day, the goal is that it's, what is the word that they always use? Synergistic.
Something like that.
We're
Yeah.
making you better, you're making us better. Like that's
Yeah.
the goal here is that we're working in unison to accomplish your common goal, which is buy a house.
Yep. So
But
this
yeah.
is most likely your largest purchase.
It always
It's
is.
a monthly payment, and it's
Yeah.
a big asset for you, and we want to make sure that you're comfortable with
Mhm.
us, and we're comfortable with you moving forward too.
Unless you're buying a super yacht, usually your house is like,
Yeah.
I mean, even like nowadays with home prices where the market's at, like
Yeah.
most cars don't even come close to houses anymore,
No.
even the nice ones. Well, you get a McLaren, I guess.
Yeah.
We can
maybe.
start comparing things. But anyways, yeah, similar to Jeff, like I'm licensed in real estate. Licensing is done on a state by state
Yeah.
basis. And so I'm licensed in the state of Washington, but also supporting and licensed in the state of Utah as well.
Awesome.
A lot of family and friends and connections down in Utah that I got my license for. But primarily 85-90% of the business that I do is in Snohomish and King County.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All righty. Cool. Well, let's talk about the biggest piece of the puzzle, financing. So you've picked your agent. Hopefully it's me. But if it's not, like I always say, you want to interview a couple agents, figure out who your best fit is, because your agent probably has a lender,
Yeah.
Brandon, or I also have a couple other great lenders. He also has a couple great
Yeah.
agents. We all know good people. But I'm going to give you 2 to 3 lenders to interview and make sure that you're a great fit with them also.
It's always important. I think what we're trying to really kind of communicate here is the importance of it being a good fit, but also the importance of getting good advice.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of good people. And at the end of the day, being a certified negotiation expert comes down to relationships,
Yes.
I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think negotiation and sales in general and in the home buying process as a whole has a lot to do with relationships, which is why Jeff is saying it's important to have a few conversations
Yep.
with a few different people and just get a feel for who they are, how they work, how they communicate, who they know in the industry is also important.
Yeah.
Jeff mentioned that he's with John L. Scott. John L. Scott is a wonderful brokerage that's got connections all over the state. It's a local
Yep.
brokerage, which is
Yep.
cool. It was started right here
Yeah.
in
Right.
Bellevue.
Seattle.
Or is it
Bellevue.
Bellevue?
Yep. Yep.
Downtown Bellevue is the headquarters of John L. Scott. So yeah, it's a local outfit with a lot of local relationships, and that matters.
Yeah. It
That
does.
totally matters in the market when you're buying a house.
Yep. So let's say you've picked your agent, we've picked the lender, and it's Brandon and I, right?
Otherwise, why are you still watching?
Yeah. So
Because you
let
want the code word.
yeah.
Because you're going to work with
Yes,
us. Right?
exactly. Getting pre-approved.
Yeah.
Because that is, I can't get you set up on a home search until we know what your budget is, what price range we're looking
Yeah.
in. So let's talk about that process.
And you might know your budget. You might already have an idea of what your budget is, and that's great. However, what I'll tell you is that oftentimes what I think my personal budget is differs from what I could actually qualify for when it comes to buying a home. So that's why it's important to start the process and to start it early.
Yeah.
I think, Jeff, I've been thinking a lot about this.
Okay.
Because I wanted to really have something good to say to everybody. I think early on in the home buying process, if you could break it out into like 3 different segments or 3 different parts of the process, the early on first step is the education phase.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
education, I think actually going through the pre-approval process is a very educational experience.
Yeah.
You're understanding what the market's like. You're understanding and learning about what options are available to you. You have the ability to ask questions to Jeff, to myself, to get additional clarity on exactly what something means for you specifically. It's all about education
Yeah.
early on. And I think
Really is.
if you really want to set yourself up as a successful home buyer, and to me, being a successful home buyer doesn't just mean we got to closing,
Yeah. No.
right? But a lot of people would measure success in real estate with that metric. We made it to closing.
Yep.
I think the real measure of success is we made it to closing and we got exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
Because we understood what we were doing. And if we didn't get exactly what we wanted, we got what we wanted based on what was available and based on
Compromise fairly.
understanding
Yeah.
what the compromise was.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a negotiation process, there's a compromise process.
Yep.
Even when it comes down to interest rates and mortgages, like the market's moving up and down all the time. You might not get the rate that you thought you were going to get because you didn't get your interest rate locked until 3 months after you started the process and the market's different.
Yeah.
But the goal is that you understand why it's different.
Yep.
You understand what changed to cause it to be different and how that impacted you and your situation specifically. And that's really the goal of going through the pre-approval process. Long-winded answer, Jeff, but
No.
getting pre-approved is important because it's how you educate yourself on what options are going to be available to you. Now, I will say this, Jeff, and you can jump in and interrupt me if you want. I don't want to cut you off, but there used to be, and this is the thing that we're kind of really trying to remind you guys of. The market is changing every single day. If we were having this conversation a year ago, Jeff and I would sit here and tell you, hey, you have to go through the underwriting process before you make an offer. You have to have your pre-approval fully underwritten. Do I still think that's a good thing? I always think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But the market's different today than it was a year ago.
Yeah.
So that might not necessarily be applicable in every scenario anymore, but it's understanding why and what's changed and what that means. So all that to say, Jeff, I'll keep it really, really simple for everybody. There's really 3 phases or tiers. I feel like I'm using the rule of 3s.
Yeah.
3 is the magical number here. It's really 3 levels or tiers of pre-approval. There's a pre-qualification, which anybody can do. Like Jeff and I could do that on a napkin for you and say, hey, here you go. You're pre-qualified to buy a house in this amount with this amount down.
Yeah.
All a pre-qualification is doing math. Like you tell me what you make for your income, I tell you what kind of house you can afford, and I tell you you're pre-qualified. Have I looked at any of your information? Have I looked at your pay stubs or your W-2s, or maybe you have a more complicated income situation that we need to fully verify?
Yeah.
That's the second tier
You
of
got
the
2 car payments. You've got
a
about
whole bunch of stuff. You know, you got this house that's in Nevada that you've owned for 15 years. You forgot about it, right? Like I've had that happen before where we've got multiple rental properties. Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Oh man.
But you know, in a pre-qualification, it's okay to forget about things because you're just pre-qualifying,
Yeah.
right? You're just like, hey, can we make this work? Yes, theoretically, based on the information we're talking about, we can make this work.
Yep.
Pre-approval, on the other hand, is where we actually review and verify all of the information that we talked about on the napkin.
Yeah.
You know, you tell
which is
me,
good.
Jeff tells me, hey, I make 100 grand a month. I go, Jeff, crushing it,
High
right?
five.
Let me see your W-2. Let me see your pay stubs. Let me see your tax returns. Let's see that
Yeah.
100 grand and see what it really looks like and make sure we have documentation to support that statement, right? Same
Turns out
thing.
I meant 100 grand a year. Yeah, a little bit of different
Yeah.
number there.
Or it was 100 grand before Jeff paid his taxes, and Jeff paid $89,000 in taxes every month. And so, see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it just depends on your personal scenario. Pre-approval, we actually verify all that information, and then that third tier, which we already alluded to, is that fully underwritten pre-approval, is where we actually take that pre-approval one step further, and we get that in front of an actual physical human underwriter. Because at the end of the day, once you go through the loan process and you're buying a house, you got to go through an underwriting process, and
Yep.
the underwriter has to approve you anyways. So we do that up front. So it's based on the assumption that you're going to find a house. We're not looking at a specific property address or anything of that nature. We're just having an underwriter review your credit score, your income, your assets, and your
Yep.
liabilities. Your liabilities are your monthly debts. Is there anything in those 4 areas that would cause concern or give us a red flag that we would need additional clarity or information on? And chances are, Jeff, you unleashed me. I'm not going to
No, this is good.
apologize
This is
anymore.
good.
You unleashed me. So chances are, like, there's always something, right? There's always an additional question or a concern the underwriter is going to have. Hey, explain this to me. How does this work?
Yep.
You earn bonus income, but you only receive it on the last paycheck of the year. Okay, how do we include that bonus income in 2023 when you haven't received it yet, right?
Yeah.
So there's things that we work through. So really, what we're trying to communicate to you is from pre-qualification to fully underwritten pre-approval, all that's happening throughout that process is education. You're educating yourself, we're educating ourselves about who you are and what kind of borrower you are.
Yep.
And you're getting more and more clarity as you move through the process.
Yep.
You're getting a better understanding of what your true purchasing power, all the while getting a better understanding of exactly what type of loan scenario and loan programs are available to you.
Yep.
So you start
we'll
with
go
kind of
into.
a general idea, and then you get more specific the more work you put in up front. I'm a big proponent, Jeff, of doing as much heavy lifting as you can early on in the process.
Yeah.
Just because I know what it's like going through the home buying process, and it isn't laid back and relaxing all the time.
No.
There's a lot of documents that you got to sign. Jeff's
Yeah.
always sending you addendums to stuff. You want
Yep.
initials all the time. There's escrows reaching out. Title wants to know who your firstborn, the name of your first pet, all
Yeah.
sorts of crazy stuff.
yeah.
So I get it. Like, that's why I think before we get to the stressful part, let's get all the questions answered. Let's get everything, wrapped up in a nice, beautiful
Yep.
bow, and let's get all of that education taken care of so that when we get into that home buying process where you've actually had an offer accepted by a seller, it's smooth sailing.
Yeah.
And it can be.
Yeah. And I think a couple notes there. So first of all,
That was a lot. So
Yeah, no, it's good.
Hit us with your notes, Jeff.
first note is just because you get pre-approved for a certain amount, I get asked this question all the time, does not mean you guys have to spend that much money. If you get pre-approved for a $700,000 home, and your budget allows for it according to the numbers, but you're like, hey, we actually like to take a vacation twice a year to one to Hawaii and one to the Bahamas. This would make it so we're only eating ramen every month. We get that. You can drop your purchase price down to 450, 500, whatever makes sense. So just know that we usually try and shoot for the max so people have an idea of
Yeah.
what they could go up to. But then if you want to spend less, it's your budget, your money. We're here to help you make sure the house fits into the whole plan.
I think there's a couple of benefits to understanding what your maximum purchasing power is. It's number one, you understand what your maximum purchasing power
Yeah.
is. Like, this is our limit, right?
Yep.
And in some cases, it might be a limit, but then if this is true, like, hey,
Yeah.
if your bonus income or your 2023 bonus is X, you might be able to have a little bit more power, but it's
Yeah.
understanding that. And I think the other benefit is you only have to go through the process once to know your max, and then
Yep.
everything below that, you're golden.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than say, hey, lender, can I get pre-approved for a $500,000 house this week? And the next week you're like, oh, that $750,000 house, that's the one.
Yeah, exactly.
Bobby and I love it. We got to have it.
Yeah.
Go
Then
back to the lender and go, hey, lender, can we get to 750? Let me see. And then I'm, doing numbers again. It's just easier if you start with your max, then you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you can work your budget down. Always easier to go down than it is to go up.
Exactly.
Point number two was the underwritten. So, like
Mm,
Brandon said, it's not super crucial in this market to do that anymore because when houses were flying off the
mhm.
shelves in 48 hours, that's how I help my buyers stand out. You know, I would say the amount of offers we made before buyers would actually get into a contract, I was probably under the national
Wow.
average, but that was because I had lenders like
Mhm.
Brandon that would help you as a buyer stand out. Because when I talk to the listing agent, say, hey, here's my buyer's offer. By the way, they're underwritten, which means everything's verified. They're good to go. We're closing this house at at this price, no matter what.
And I think if you're an educated home buyer, you're going to hear me say that a lot. And it's not the code word. Educated home buyer is
Nope,
not the code word.
it's not.
But I think when you're an educated home buyer, you just have that much more of a leg up on
Yeah,
the other home buyers that are in the market because you know what you're doing.
yeah,
And I think, like Jeff said, in some markets it makes sense to go through that underwriting process.
yeah,
Sometimes it doesn't. It's really personal preference for you as the client. If you want to know more or be more certain, I always go back to like, do I want to be confident? Do I want to be certain?
yeah,
I like that stuff.
yeah,
I'm risk averse.
yeah,
See, and so I like to have as much certainty and as much confidence as possible before I go into a financial decision. My
yep.
wife's different. We can have that on a different conversation, but like I like to know those things going into it. So that affords me the possibility to get that confidence and that certainty. And here's $1 million question. If you don't get anything else out of this video, here's the $1 million question to ask your realtor and your lender. What can I do to stand out?
Yeah, that's what it's all about in those competitive situations for sure.
Because it might have been like Jeff said a year ago, to stand out, you have to be fully underwritten before you make an offer.
Well, even now, like there are certain markets where homes are sitting 30, 60, 90
Yeah.
days. Again, not probably not as important to be underwritten, but there are pockets of, I'm seeing pockets of Marysville, Lake Stevens still, or Everett, still centers of big
Sure.
activity,
Yeah.
and we don't have a whole lot of inventory right now. Talk about that later, but there's still going to be competition. There's still people out there trying to buy a home. So it may not be 15 or 20 offers on a house, but even if it's three or four and you want the house, you still want to stand out against those three or four other people.
Hmm. But
Uh,
that to me is the $1 million question, because when you've got a certified negotiation expert here, he's going to know. Like
yeah,
he's going to know because he has a relationship with the listing agent who has a relationship with the seller. Jeff's going to know what it takes to stand out.
yeah,
When we make this offer, what do we need to do to stand out? And it might not be fully underwritten. It might be you guys need to be able to close in 14 days.
yeah,
Or the buyers, or excuse me, the sellers aren't really interested in this, in
yeah,
inspection or whatever, right? They don't really want to go through that. And so
yeah.
Jeff knows and has had those conversations with the people that are important in the transaction to be able to give you the advice that you need to move forward with the process. Again, it all comes down to education and communication every
Exactly.
time, 100%.
And I always tell my clients if we're in those competitive situations, sometimes it doesn't make sense for them to write an offer. Maybe somebody's all cash, closing in 10 days, waiving their inspection. That might be too much that might be too much risk
Yeah,
for you to take on. And I totally understand that because it's, again, it's a large asset that you're buying, not knowing if there's issues with it, which is why I never recommend buying a house without a home inspection.
exactly.
But we'll get more into that later also.
Hmm.
But yeah, like Brandon was saying, it's all about talking to the listing agent, figuring out what's going on.
Hmm.
Um, so jumping back into the loan side of things, what kind of loans are out there? Because it's not just a conventional 20% down 30-year loan. I
No.
get asked that all the time. How do I save up 20%
Yeah.
when the average home in my area is $500,000?
That's such a 1950s mentality,
Yeah,
Jeff. Like the conventional 20% down. Is that an option? Definitely. You can still put 20% down and have a conventional loan, and that might be the right answer for you. But really, nowadays in 2023, the world is our oyster when it comes to loan options and potential solutions for you to be able to make it work. I work with clients all the time that aren't going to fit in a cookie cutter solution.
no,
And that really is what a conventional 20% down loan is. I mean, that's the one that we've all kind of taken and ingrained in our minds as like the way to buy a house. And
Yep.
maybe that is the, like I said, that could be the right way for you, but there's so many different loan programs out there. There's your standard, ones that have been your standard loans that have been around forever, conventional FHA, VA is another good one, USDA. But what we're seeing more and more of is these out of the box loan solutions
Okay.
now, which is cool.
Yeah.
I think like for the right person, for the right scenario, it makes total sense. But if you're a self-employed borrower, you just started your business, traditionally 1950s mentality, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in any derogatory
No.
way, but like old school, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't buy a house for 2 years because I just started a business. How many
Yep.
times have we heard that?
Oh, I
right?
heard that
All
in
the- yeah,
real
but-
estate.
Yeah, and I did too. I mean, that's the same thing. But nowadays, there are loan solutions and programs available for people to buy homes right away when they start a
Awesome.
business. Might be a different alternative route of qualifying, and it's not going to be what you're used to, but there are opportunities available, and they don't always require 20% down. In fact, I'll have to check this for 2023, but the last data that I remember reading from the National Association of Realtors, Jeff, your homies,
Oh yeah.
literally,
Yep.
was that the average down payment for first-time home buyers was 7%. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the average down payment for repeat home buyers, meaning you've already
You
owned
got
a
your
home,
equity
right,
and all that.
was
Yeah.
12%.
Yeah.
So nobody's even approaching what we thought the average was of 20%,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
The golden rule of buying a house. So that just goes to show you that like the home loan process and the qualification and the pre-approval is really a customizable experience for you personally.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I love about it, Jeff.
Yeah.
To go back to what you were asking about
Yeah.
earlier.
Because let's say you have, well, like me, student loan debt,
Yeah.
and you're moving from your first house to your second house, and you go, oh man, I really want to get out of PMI. I'd love to put 20% down, but maybe it makes sense to pay off that student loan and put a little less down on the
Yeah.
house, get rid of some debt burdens. And again, this is one of the things I love about real estate is just how much power your equity gives you as a home buyer, as just going through life, really.
Power and flexibility.
Yeah,
Flexibility to do things you otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. I'd
exactly.
say,
Exactly.
for sure.
Okay. Now we've kind of talked a little bit about the loan types. Again, they're all going to be applicable to you in one way or another, depending on which route you're going, right? And we can get more in depth with those one-on-one with you. Sometimes USDA makes sense, sometimes FHA or conventional or VA if you're a veteran or active.
And that's why going through the pre-approval process, like we were talking about, is educational, because that's when
Yeah.
we will talk about, well, we can't really expect a USDA loan to solve your financial challenge right now, simply because you're looking to buy a house in a downtown area, and USDA loans don't work for,
Yeah.
for like a metro, like what's the word I'm looking for, Jeff?
Urban.
Urban.
Yeah.
Thank you. Urban.
Yeah.
They're not
Urban.
designed
Yeah.
for urban home purchases. And
Yep.
so that's the Q&A and the, hey, let's look at this and what does that mean? And that is the pre-approval process in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say we get you through all that. Another big question that I know you get asked, and I get asked too, what are these closing costs? What are they doing for me? Why do I have to pay them? All that.
That's a good one. What are they doing for me?
Yeah.
I honestly, like, sometimes they're doing good things and sometimes they don't make a lot of sense. But I will tell you guys that that's the other part of the pre-approval process when it comes to education, is educating you about the costs of buying a house.
Yep.
Because from lender to lender or financial institution to financial institution, maybe the most challenging aspect of going through the home buying process is trying to make heads or tails of all of the different fee structures and costs that are associated with buying a house, because everybody does it a little bit different.
Yep.
Right? You got your interest rate here, that's important. And a lot of people will hyper focus on that, which is
Yeah.
good and bad. But then you've got some closing costs over here that you need to really understand. And they should be, to Jeff's question,
Yeah.
what are these doing for me? You should be able to answer that question.
Yeah.
I think that's when you know you've fully educated yourself and you have a good understanding of what is going on in your home buying process, is when you understand exactly where all of those fees and all that money's going.
Yeah.
Because it can be thousands and thousands of dollars if you're not careful.
Yeah. Because you're going to have title and escrow fee no matter what. Sometimes you have
Mhm.
lender fees,
Mhm.
sometimes the appraisal fee, which, like we said, waiting for that code
Yeah.
word, get that appraisal fee
Right.
waived. But there may be some other things. So escrow will, of course, during the process, give you the settlement statement that's going to show you
Yeah.
broken out what all those things mean. But
But don't wait until you get to that point in the
no,
process to understand it. Let's talk about it.
yeah, because Brandon can estimate that for you,
Oh yeah,
so
I'm
you have a
happy
good
to.
idea of what you're getting yourself into.
For
But
sure.
the other thing it's going to cover is your prepaid interest.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, I can let you talk more about
The
that.
heck
'Cause
is prepaid interest,
yeah,
Jeff?
exactly. What is it?
Right? Where are all these fees and charges? Do you want me to answer that? I
Yeah.
can. So part of the challenge when you're going through the home buying process is you don't do it every day, and so you're not familiar with exactly how things work, which is why you need to lean on a professional to help kind of guide you through that you trust. Otherwise, you're just going to get a bunch of information that doesn't make a lot of sense. But one of the
Yep.
main components of the closing costs of the loan is understanding the mortgage payment. Why do I say that, Jeff? Well, I'll tell you
Yeah.
why I say that. It's because when you buy a house, typically you're not going to have a mortgage payment due for 2 months, believe it or not. So let's say you buy a house in the month of May, right? You close on it. You and Jeff are celebrating. Jeff's got a bottle of wine and everything for you, ready for closing.
Oh
You're,
yeah,
you're not going to have a mortgage payment due on that home until July,
which is awesome.
which is really cool. And it's because of the way mortgage payments work. And I'll let you Google this on your own, but the terminology that you're looking to understand is mortgage payments are made in arrears. So when you make your
Yep.
mortgage payment, you're actually paying for the month before
Unlike rent,
the
where you're
payment was due.
paying the
Exactly.
month that you're going into.
Exactly. So people go, well, what the heck is prepaid interest? Well, if you don't have a mortgage payment due for 2 months, you actually do. If you really want to understand how it works, you're actually making a mortgage payment in that first month, and it's this prepaid interest that we're talking about.
Yep.
Your first mortgage payment is 100% interest.
Yeah, it's that
It's
month of May
Yeah. So if you have
in this
if
example.
you close with Jeff on your home May 15th, you become the legal owner May 15th. You're going to be responsible for paying interest from May 15th to June 1st. So that's part of that closing cost that's due at closing is that amount of prepaid interest. And then fast forward to July 1st, your July 1st payment is going to pay for June. So prepaid interest paid for closing through the end of May,
Yep.
first mortgage payment covers the month of June. So that's what that prepaid interest component is it's really just your first mortgage payment. So if you get caught up with these other lenders out there, I'm not going to call anybody out or throw anybody under the bus here, but I've heard it many, many times in my career. Buy a house and skip 2 payments. Refinance today and skip 3 payments. There's no such thing as a free lunch, Jeff.
No.
You're always you're making mortgage payments.
Yeah.
The bank is not going to lend you $500,000 to buy your house and then not expect you to make a payment on it.
No.
And then not expect to make a profit on lending you the money. So
Yeah.
just be aware, keep your eyes open. Jeff and I, one of the things I really like about Jeff is he's a straight shooter. It's not
Yeah.
all about like the BS and the fluff. Like that's how I like to work with my clients is, hey guys, like here's the truth,
Yeah.
right? Let's just be transparent about it. Like, yeah, it feels good to say you're not going to have a mortgage payment until July. But
Yeah.
the reality is you're making a mortgage payment at closing. It's this prepaid interest here, just so you understand it. So it's things like little
Exactly.
things like that. There's a lot of nuances in the mortgage process that if you don't look at them and don't make an attempt to understand them, you won't.
Yeah.
And it'll feel confusing. And for me, when I get confused, I get overwhelmed and then I start to get anxious and then frustration. And then I have a
Yep.
bad experience when really at the end of the day, it wasn't a bad experience. It just felt like a bad experience because I had a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
So
next big topic in the lending world, interest rate buy down. Obviously, that's popular right now in
Hot topic.
2023 with 7% interest rates. But even back in the 2 to 3% days, people could still buy their rate down even further. So
yeah,
talk about that a little bit. Obviously, we don't
Mhm.
have to get super in depth, but
it's hard for me not to.
I
Jeff.
know.
He knows this about me already.
Yep.
But I mean, here's the deal. Like, it's again, you're asking me like, how can I, as a client or as a buyer, how can I customize my mortgage to fit my needs?
Yeah.
Because that's at the end of the day, that's really what you're saying is, how can I customize my interest rate to give me the monthly payment that I want?
Yep.
And that's what you do when you buy down your interest rate. You're paying an upfront fee to get a lower interest rate so that your mortgage payments are lower over the next 30 years. But the reality is, you're not going to live in the house for 30 years, and you're probably going to refinance or change your loan within the first 7.
Yeah.
I mean, the data would tell us that most people do not stay in their mortgage for more than 7 years. It's just kind of how it shakes out. But
Yeah.
there's a couple of different ways to manipulate your monthly payment, and the best and quickest way to impact your monthly payment is by tinkering around with your interest rate, because that's the biggest component of the mortgage payment, the principal and interest portion, right? That interest portion is
Yep.
really the biggest manipulative, whatever the word is I'm
Yeah.
looking for. You guys get it.
So it'll come down to your individual needs. If
Mhm.
this is a home that this is truly you're on your third home, you think you're going to be here for a while, and all the mortgage experts in the world right now are saying, rates are probably going to remain flat or maybe even go up. Maybe it does make sense to buy it down. But if this is your
Yeah.
first home, your starter home, you know it's a starter home, you're only going to be there 2 to 3 years, I would probably counsel, but this is more your arena, I'd
Yeah.
probably say save that money and just keep it in your savings or invest it somewhere so it'll grow and all that. But what do you think?
I think it feels good. You have to be careful not to get caught up in the feeling of something instead of really understanding what it does.
Yeah.
It feels good to have a lower interest rate.
And
I like having
yeah,
lower interest rate. I mean, it feels really good, right? You get
yeah,
your mortgage statement, you're like, look at that,
yeah.
2.75. I did
Wish.
good. I did good back in 2020, right?
Yeah.
But what did that interest rate come with? What costs were associated with that interest rate? Because if I'm looking at two different quotes side by side, and this one, let's just say for today's market, let's say this one's 5.5%, this guy's at 7.
Yeah.
Initially, I'm gonna look at the 5.5% and go, that's the one.
Yeah, gotta
That's the
do
one.
that.
But then I kind of skim down to the bottom of the page and I go, well, hold on a second, there's $22,000 in fees here.
Yeah.
This guy's got $10,000 in closing costs. So there's a difference of $12,000. Okay, now I understand the way I got that 5.5% rate is I paid extra for it.
Yeah.
So you could get the 7% and not pay anything extra. You could get 5.5 and pay a lot extra. It depends on what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, both options are good options depending on the right scenario, if it makes sense for you. I think what we get caught up in when it comes to mortgages is, yes, different lenders are going to have different interest rates, but I equate mortgage interest rates to gasoline. You ready for this,
I'm
Jeff?
ready for this one.
You ready for this, Jeff?
Haven't heard
So-
this one, by the way, yet.
You haven't? This
Nope.
is new material. So I drive up to the intersection, right? And this happens all the time. There's 4 gas stations on the corner.
Yep.
You ever see that where you
Oh,
got
yeah.
the one here, the one there, the one there, and the one there? And I, as a kid, was always like, why are they all 4 right on the corner? And then in economics, in my Econ 110 class, I remember my professor teaching me about what's called spatial competition. We'll talk about that a different time.
Okay.
But I look at the gas
I
station.
think I remember
and
that.
how do most people decide where they're going to get gas?
It's either price or convenience.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you have 4 gas stations all right there, what are you going to do?
Just probably go to the next or easiest one to get into.
Right? Okay. So that's a good one. So convenience for you
Unless
is more
it's-
important than price sometimes.
Unless it's way more money.
Exactly. So there's a lot to weigh there. But let me give you this scenario, Jeff. So let's say 3 of the gas stations, you got a Shell, a Chevron, and then let's just call it an AM PM.
Why not?
Okay. And they're all within 3 or 4 cents of each other.
Okay.
Right. Then you got this 4th one over here that's Sunshine Daily Mart,
Yeah.
and its gas is 30 cents cheaper than the other 3.
Okay.
What are you thinking about this person's gas?
Is it watered
Yeah,
down?
you're questioning the
Yeah.
quality of that
Yeah.
gas at that point,
Yep.
right? So all this to say, my point in this story and this analogy
Yeah.
is mortgage rates shouldn't vary that wildly from lender to lender unless they're doing something behind the scenes that you don't understand,
Yeah.
right? And so that's where I'm saying education makes a huge difference. And here's something that I've been telling people a lot this year.
Okay.
I am happy if you want to shop around and get a bunch of different quotes from a bunch of different lenders, because I think during the pre-approval process, that's your time to educate yourself.
Yep.
I want you to go out and get information from other lenders and understand what the market is offering you. And if somebody's willing to offer you a significantly better deal than the other lenders in the market can, sometimes that's the best way to go.
Yeah.
You won. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, you won. But
Yep.
if they're offering you a significantly better deal and you don't understand why, then you come back to me and you go, Brandon, what's going on? Look at this quote. 5.5% doesn't say there's any fees. That's either a really, 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 really good interest rate and you should lock it right now,
Yeah.
or we're missing something we don't understand it. So at the end
Yeah.
of the day, like, I want to be able to counsel and advise. Sure, I want to work with everybody and do business with them and close on new houses and help you
Yep.
buy the house that you want. but I also want to make sure that you're getting the right mortgage for you. And so that's my invitation, my open invitation. If you're watching this still, holding out for the secret word, is like, use me as a resource without any strings attached.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to feel guilty if I worked with Brandon and got this far in the process, and then I saw this quote online from this credit union, and so I guess I'm going to go work with them. Let's figure out what that really means. Why is it so much different? Why is it better? Is it really better? Is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I think that was a pretty good, we'll call it quick, coverage of the pre-approval mortgage process, right? Any last notes on that, or?
No, I think we covered pretty much all of it. Yeah.
Cool. So let's say we get through all that. You're like, all right, Jeff, I got my pre-approval. Let's go home shopping. Awesome. What I'm going to do, my first process is going to get you set up in the MLS. MLS stands for Multiple Listing Service. That is where we as agents, listing agents, all put our listings into. It's where it has to go. The MLS is where Redfin and Zillow, that's where they pull all of their data from. So if you're scrolling Redfin, Zillow, whatever your favorite app is, just know that that is where they are getting their information from, is the MLS. So I always encourage my buyers, if you're a big Redfin person, my wife's on Redfin, like, I get it. Redfin spent a ton of money developing their app.
Everyone's wife's on Redfin. I'm pretty sure.
Always searching.
Yeah.
It's a great intuitive app. I get it. Or Zillow or John L. Scott. We have our own app. I like it. So I always encourage people to play around on that too. The advantage is if we're actually looking at homes together and you favorite something on
You can
John
see it,
L. Scott, I see it right away.
Mhm.
But for the MLS, I can get way more granular in your home search process than you can on Redfin or even the John L. Scott app. They're great for pulling up a map and just kind of scrolling, doing the Instagram scroll of homes, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're there for. But for the MLS, if you tell me, hey, I want a detached garage, I got to have at least this much square feet, and at least 0.285 acres or more, like, I can get that granular into the MLS. Just know that if you do get super granular, we may end up missing the perfect home.
Right.
And my example is always this: there may be, super common on Whidbey Island, your septic system might not always be rated for the amount of bedrooms you can advertise. So you might see a 2-bedroom house, but then you pull it up and you go, this is actually 3 bedrooms and an office space. Well, that's because the home septic is only permitted for 2 bedrooms. So if you tell me, hey, I got to have 3 bedrooms because that 3rd bedroom is going to be used as an office, I'll say, why don't we look for 2-bedroom homes? And then we can kind of filter through that, because I don't want to miss that perfect home.
Right.
But so a lot of different things that we can play with on the MLS. I can set up multiple searches. You can have one going for a land purchase because you want recreational property with some leftover down payment money, and then you got your house, whatever the case may be. We can go wild with it.
Sky's the limit with the MLS.
It really is. The other advantage to working with a local agent is they're going to know about off-market deals. And what are off-market deals? Off-market deals are, we might have an agent in my office that says, hey, I have somebody that's looking to sell, but it takes a lot to get a home on the market. You got to clean it up, get everything ready to go for listing photos. Then when you're on the market, if you're still living in your home, you have to take your pets and your kids out, and it has to look fully staged and super pretty all the time, and you feel like you can't even live in your own home. So for some people, that's way too much
Some
stress.
people just aren't even interested in
Yeah,
doing that.
but they want to move.
Yeah.
But they're not pressed for time, so they don't feel like they need the list, but they do want to eventually move. So if something like that comes up and they go, hey, here's about the price I want, I'm not going to go on the market, and it's something that you're looking for, then yeah, we can do an off-market deal. So that's the advantage also to working with your local agent, is they're going to know about things like that coming
Yeah.
onto the market.
Again, relationships.
Exactly.
Huge.
Another thing, touring homes. So this is a big thing I talk to my buyers about. So let's say we find 3 homes, we want to go on a Saturday. Just send me the MLS numbers. That's how I like to look at it. Redfin's going to have an MLS number, Zillow, all that. I'm going to create a viewing schedule for us that day. I have a program that pulls it all up in a map with drive times, so I can set up, hopefully, the perfect search.
Yeah.
Assuming traffic doesn't derail us too much or something like that. But we're going to look at all these homes because they all require appointments. They all are
Yeah.
going to have a little blue key box. My phone has access to that only licensed agents can open. So you can't just go look at a home
Can't just show up.
whenever you want. You definitely have to make an appointment. Same most of the time with vacant land also too. I think
Yeah,
people
totally.
don't understand that. You can just, oh, nobody lives there. I can just walk onto
Just
the
hop the
property.
fence. Says no trespassing,
Yeah,
but
they're
it's
on
for
them.
sale.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely don't want to do that. We always want to make appointments. Another big thing is open houses.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have another client I'm working with and we've already got showings scheduled for that day, but the house you want to look at has an open house. Awesome. Go to the open house. I'll give you a stack of my business cards. So when you walk in the door, you can say, hey, I'm working with an agent. Here's his name. I just want to go look through the home. That's totally fine because what a lot of people don't understand about open houses is it's most of the time not the listing agent holding the open house.
Typically, no.
Yeah, it might be somebody from their office that's looking to pick up a new buyer that doesn't have an agent they're working with. They're just hoping to make a good connection. Frankly, I do that too because
Yeah.
it's a good way to meet people
Right.
looking for a home.
That way, and educate yourself on the market
Yeah,
at the same time.
exactly. So that's one thing why I give you cards because sometimes not all those agents are laid back and chill. They kind of can be a little used car salesy. So that's why I give you your car or my cards, and then you can go look at open houses and just say, "Hey, I'm gonna go look at these open
Yeah.
homes today."
Just
Awesome.
tape one right on your chest,
Yeah, there you go.
like a name tag, and walk through the open
Yep.
house, and they won't
Yep.
bother you.
There you go.
It's like going into those stores, Jeff. I don't know if you guys are the same as I am, but like I do everything that I can to avoid the worker coming to ask me how they can help.
Yeah.
Like I go to Home Depot and I know I don't have any idea where the thing is that I'm looking
No.
for, but if they ask me how they can help, I'm gonna be like, nope, just looking.
Yep. Pull up your app, try to find
I know
it.
not everybody's like that, but like that's just how I
Yeah.
am. And so
Yep.
that's to Jeff's point. Like, yeah, walk in there, let them know that you're already represented, and then they won't bother you.
Yeah, exactly. Then you just look at the home on your own time. Another question I get asked, because obviously I'm a one-man team, I guess, in some aspects, at least when it comes to the showing side of things. I have a life outside of work. You have a life outside
Yeah,
of
right.
work. We like to take vacations. We just got done saying we like to camp and spend time
Yeah.
outdoors, and what that usually equates to is little to no cell
Bad
service.
service all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Spotty.
So I will always let you know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to be out for the weekend. I'm camping, most likely won't have service. And if that's the case, I'm going to have a backup agent from my office that will be able to help you out, do showings for you, or prior example, if it's a very busy Saturday for me, then yeah, I can pay and hire another agent to help you out so you don't have to feel like, man, I can't see this house I really want to see because Jeff's out of town. I
Right.
never want you to feel that way, which is why I always try my best to communicate ahead of time. Hey, I'm going to be out of
Right.
town. This Saturday, I'm booked up in the morning, whatever the case may be, so that you guys can get into the home you want to see. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. I think it's all again, we've said this a couple of times, and it's not the key word,
Nope.
but communication and education, right? And
Yeah.
Jeff's talking about communication. We all have different schedules and different lives, right?
Yep.
Like I got done telling you guys earlier that I've got 5 kids, and that takes its toll on me. And so every so often, my wife and I like to get away for a day or two.
Yep.
But like to Jeff's point, that's fine, that's great, but we'll always set you up with success in our absence. Set you up for success in our absence, I guess I
Yep.
should say is we'll make sure you are aware first and foremost that we're not going to be around.
Yeah.
And then anything else that you'll need access to, we'll always have somebody who's licensed and ready to help in that specific area, ready to assist you in our absence.
Exactly. Cool. Well, now that we've gotten through the two big things, let's talk about inventory challenges because this has been an ongoing problem for years and we predict it
Yeah.
to not be solved anytime soon.
No.
Which I think is why a lot of people are frustrated at pricing right now. I'm paying 7%. Why is there no homes? Why am I still bidding against other people? What is going on?
That's frustrating when you look at it at face value, right?
Yeah, it is. So, a little bit about our current inventory challenge is just thinking about all the people that are sitting on 2 to 3% interest rates at the time right now are probably looking at, hey, I wanted to upgrade my house at this point, but
Mhm.
now it's significantly more money or it costs significantly more money to borrow.
Right.
What are some other ways you can think of too?
as far as inventory,
Yeah.
the challenges it presents. I think anytime, to Jeff's point, we've been in a low inventory environment for a while, and we continue to feel like we're going to be there for the next probably 5 to 7 years at least.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the statistics, and there's really two things you can measure. You can measure the speed or rate at which new homes are being built,
Yep.
and then compare that to the speed or rate at which first-time home buyers are buying houses.
Yeah. I'd love
Because
to go into that more.
because they're the ones that are taking houses off of the inventory because they haven't sold a home to then buy a home, right?
Yep.
If you own a home and you're selling it to then buy a home, you're replacing the house on the inventory and
Yep.
then taking one off. So it's a
It's a
net
wash.
of
Yeah.
zero, right? But it's looking at those two things. And what we do know is we've got the largest home buying generation ever recorded in history in the millennial generation out in full force buying homes now. They've all been in their careers, most of them for 5 to 10 years. They're starting to earn enough to be able to afford a house. They're starting to have a family. They
Yep.
need more space. And so they're the home buyers right now. But then you look and compare that to how quickly home builders are building homes, and
Yep.
there's a deficit there.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with, permitting costs, regulatory costs. A lot of it was very, very slowed during the pandemic because material costs went up so high. Labor was harder to find. It was harder to
Yeah.
perform labor because you couldn't leave your house.
Yep.
So we have all these kind of like lagging indicators of a low inventory market still kind of prevalent in the market today.
Yeah.
And so that presents unique challenges because although interest rates are moving up, have moved up and are higher than they have been and than what we got used to, the home prices haven't really done anything but increase.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a little dip
A little
at the
bit.
beginning of 2023, Jeff, and that was when like everybody on the news was the housing market's going to crash.
Oh, yeah.
Remember all that?
Yep.
Like 90, we had like 90 days, 3 months of that being the rhetoric on the
Yeah.
news and on social media is I'm not buying a house right now. The market's going to crash. I'm going to wait till prices are bottomed out.
To be fair, there are some markets
Yeah,
that
sure.
dipped quite a bit. But again, this is why you talk to your local
Mm-hmm.
people because we haven't seen it quite like I know Phoenix or some other
No,
parts of
yeah.
Arizona,
There's going to be some hyper localization on that stuff, but nationally,
or even certain price points in our own area.
Yeah.
Like it's all local.
it's all relative to
Yeah.
whatever. That's the moral of this message.
Yeah. It's all local.
Everything is relative to you, the home buyer, and the experience should be tailored and the education should be tailored to you
Yes.
because it just depends on your scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, no blanket statement of, hey, like inventory is this and rates are this applies to everybody
No.
because it's just not the case. There's so many variables at play. And so,
Yeah. So
but I think, Jeff, we would be remiss if we didn't say understand the market,
Yeah.
at least at the surface level, that there is low inventory and there is demand.
yep.
And what that's going to lead to is competition.
Yep.
And if there's competition right now at a 7% interest rate and rates go down to 5.5%, that means there's going to be more competition.
Yeah.
So understanding that part of the market and kind of the levers and dynamics that are at play can help you be a more experienced and equipped home buyer because you could buy that house as long as it fits within your budget at 7%.
Mhm.
Get the house, you have the house, you move in, you own it, your name's on the title,
Yep.
and then refinance once the rate gets to 5.5%, or you can wait and then you might be competing against 10 or 12 buyers.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean one way is wrong and one way is right. It means one way is one way and the other way is
Yeah.
the other way.
And it's
Right?
got to work for
Yeah.
you.
Just understand it.
Yeah. And that's why we're here. We just want to educate you and make sure that it's going to work for your situation, your scenario. Because last thing we want is say, yeah, buy the house at 7%. It's going to be great. Interest rates are going to drop in 6 months. And you're like, okay, I can make it work for 6 months, but I'm barely scraping by. And then 2 years later, and rates still haven't dropped. Because we can have all the
Yeah.
numbers and predictions we want, but
And then you're host.
yeah, we
You're stuck with your high mortgage payment.
we don't want to do that to you.
No.
So we always want to look at numbers now and then kind of talk about, yeah, here's what we may think happens, but we don't want you guys to be buying and trying to live off of something that
Yeah.
you might think happen in 6 months to a year from now.
Well, that's where having, myself or Jeff help you understand that. Jeff's a great resource to go, hey, Jeff, if I buy this house for $700,000, what can you teach me about this market, this neighborhood, and about appreciation?
Yeah.
I know I have some tools and resources for that. Jeff's very equipped to provide insight there in that area, but like understanding buying today versus waiting and buying tomorrow or 6 months or a year from now, understanding how that impacts your financial situation
Yeah.
is almost more important than the interest rate itself.
Yeah. I'd say so.
I think so, because if I buy a house at 7% and I own it for 3 years, instead of buying that house, I wait for 3 years and buy it at 5%. I have no equity. I have less equity,
Yeah.
I guess I should say, depending on what my down payment is. But understanding how property appreciation and actually making your mortgage payment is actually making you a wealthier person is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So to go back to the inventory thing, our big thing is millennials, aka me,
Hey,
are buying.
I heard the term the other day. I'm a late millennial or something.
Okay.
The geriatric millennials, what they're calling
There
it.
you
Yeah.
go.
Because I was born in '83, and I guess the cutoff was what, 81 for millennials, or 82 or something like
Okay.
that.
No, I'm solidly right in the
Yeah,
middle.
you're right there. I'm
Yep.
I'm full blown
Yep.
geriatric millennial. Is what they're
Love
calling us.
it.
Yeah.
So we got us millennials buying their first home, and the crazy thing is now I'm starting to see my first Gen Z buyers
Yeah,
too.
that's happening.
So we're having more and more and more buyers, but we don't have a whole lot of sellers.
It's kind of going the wrong way. It's going
Yeah,
backwards.
and we've got a lot of builders that some of them are finally rebuilding from the '08 housing
Yeah,
crisis,
this took them
but
forever.
yeah, but a lot of them are still kind of gun shy because they learned their lesson. A lot of them either went out of business or had to lay off a lot of people and lost a lot of money. So,
Well, I think the pandemic also kind of reignited some of those fears for builders. Is hey, like we
yeah,
went 2 years without basically being able to do our projections. We projected that we were going to be able to build X number of homes. They didn't hit that.
yeah,
There was no way they could have, material costs and labor.
yeah,
But yeah, I think they're still gun shy, Jeff. I think
yep,
to a certain extent. And here, can I throw one more thing in, Jeff? I'm just
yep,
really excited about this. So Jeff says millennials are the biggest demographic buying houses right now. Gen Z's right behind them. Interestingly, given what we know about the previous generations, which would have been the baby boomers and was it Gen X?
Gen
Is that
X,
the one
yep,
after that? The baby boomers and Gen X, specifically the baby boomers, are currently the generation that holds the most wealth in the United States, followed closely by Gen X. As those people start retiring, and I mean, some of them are passing away. I mean, I don't want to be morbid, but like
yeah,
somebody passes away or somebody retires, their next course of action is to distribute their wealth.
yep,
So what we're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years is we're already seeing it, the greatest transfer of wealth that we've ever seen in the country. And what that directly translates to is more money in the hands of these first-time home buyers to buy houses, which means more competition and more demand.
yep,
With a limited supply or a limited inventory, we're going to see more competition
yep,
because of those things. And so that's understanding things at a granular level to really, really be able to put a firm understanding and grasp around how the market impacts you specifically.
yep. And sometimes those homes are being sold, sometimes they're being passed down. So we
Yeah.
can't always count on them, that inventory
Mhm.
being, coming back onto the market because
No,
it may just pass to another family member.
it could. And then we just know, I mean, we know because we know. The data tells us that there is no way in the next 5 to 7 years that we're going to make up the shortage in inventory based on the current
Yeah.
building
Well,
statistics.
and building,
It's
especially in
impossible.
this area, is
It's
getting more and
impossible.
more challenging.
Nationwide, I feel like we have a shortage of like 1.2 million units nationwide,
Yeah.
which is crazy. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, they
where we're
say
at.
God's not making any more land, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to find creative ways to build. Um,
Yeah.
there's so many more stringent requirements now on builders, so I don't see
Yeah, some
it getting
states are
easier.
definitely harder than others.
Yeah.
Washington would be one of those states, since we both are versed in Washington. Washington's a hard place to build houses.
It is.
It's expensive and it's a lot of regulatory red tape.
Yep. And you can only go north south. You've got the mountains on one
Yeah.
side and the ocean on the other.
No, it's a challenge, and people still want to live here.
Yeah. It's a great place to live. All right. So we've kind of talked about all our inventory challenges. Let's kind of talk about the offer process. We've found a home now,
Okay.
actually. So we're going to write an offer. So you and me are going to write an offer. I'm going to go through your very first offer with you, phone call, whatever is easiest after I submit it to you for a review. Um, and like I said earlier, tons of things we can negotiate on. So quickly, you've got price, you've got your closing date, you've got your inspection period and how long your inspection period is. If there's a couple other offers and they've got inspection periods also, maybe we shorten up our inspection period.
Mm-hmm.
And why that is a big help here is because the inspection period is the buyer's get out of jail free card. This is your time to do all of your due diligence and walk for literally any reason,
Right.
which is the most scary as a seller. Think about it. You're selling your home, you took it off the market for a person that wants to buy it, and during this 5 to 10 day period, you don't know at all if the home sale is going to go through because you're waiting to hear back on the inspection report.
Right. And that's
Now,
the point of earnest money right there,
yeah,
Jeff, is
exactly.
to give the seller some peace of mind and some skin,
Yep.
put some skin in the game so that
Oh, yeah.
they'll let you have this inspection period because you just gave them $10,000,
Yeah.
right, to hold on deposit.
Yep. Yeah. We'll talk about that
Sorry,
too.
I got ahead
Oh,
of myself.
that's okay. So during that inspection process, if we find something wrong with the house that's just going to cost way too much to rebuild, I mean, we had one where the foundation was cracked and the floor was, we could tell just walking through the house, the floor was a little off because a tennis ball would roll through it if you set it down. But we didn't know why. The inspector got under there and there was a big crack in the foundation.
Makes
So
sense, yeah.
the house was starting to slope away. Most people probably aren't going to buy that unless you happen to be a foundation specialist and negotiate the price down and fix it because you know how to do that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, this is your time to get a health check on the house, make sure it's worth buying. And I always tell people, I'm not going to write an offer just to write an offer because I don't want you walking away during the inspection process. You're like, you know what? I actually don't like yellow houses.
Yeah.
Well, we can always paint things, but this isn't
Yeah.
why we go through this whole process, right? I want you committed. I want you excited about the house. I want you envisioning yourself there for the next 1 to 10 years, however long you plan on being there. Um, but we're going to go through that. And let's say we get through the inspection. And again, this is our time to negotiate. If we need a new roof, if some toilets need fixing, whatever the case may be, this is when we can negotiate those items with the seller.
Right.
And they either have the option to just say, yes, fix it all, say, hey, I'll raise the price a little bit to help my costs offset. We'll meet in the middle. Lots of different ways we can negotiate this thing. But let's say we get through that. So your inspection period is kind of, like I said, that big first hurdle in the whole process. And Brandon brought up earnest money. I got a little ahead of myself.
Yeah.
So earnest money is due. We get an offer accepted, seller signs, we've negotiated everything, we're good to move forward. Your earnest money is typically due within 3 days. And what that is, like he was saying, that's your skin in the game. You're giving the seller, typically it's 2 to 3% of the purchase price, but it's always case dependent on your situation, your loan type, all that kind of thing. We can negotiate that. But that is you saying, hey, Mr. and Miss Seller, thanks for taking your home off the market for me. This is my skin in the game. I will not walk away from the house for an uncovered reason, and a covered reason is the inspection. I will not walk away from the house for an uncovered reason. And if I do, because I get cold feet at day 29 of day 30 of the process,
Because I don't like yellow houses.
yeah, exactly. You get to keep this money.
Yeah.
So that's kind of their reassurance. So that's back to standing out in a competitive situation. If you have higher earnest money, that kind of gives the seller reassurance that you're really serious
Peace of
about buying
mind.
this house.
For sure.
Exactly.
One of the questions I get, Jeff, all the time is, well, what happens to my earnest money when we close?
That's a great question.
And your earnest money is basically just an early deposit of your down payment, a portion of your down payment. So if you're going to put $15,000 down
Yep.
to buy your house, and you put $10,000 down in earnest money, that's $10,000 of your $15,000 down payment. So
Yep.
at closing, you'd only be responsible for bringing the remaining $5,000 of your down payment to closing. And so
Plus your closing costs.
plus the closing costs. But
Yep.
when we're talking about just down payment specifically, your earnest money is credited towards your down payment at
Yep.
closing.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's what your earnest money goes towards. Um, All right. Sorry, guys. I've got notes to keep me on track. So, your next big thing after home inspection, we've made it through home inspection, whether it was clean, we negotiated some things, whatever the case may be. Your next big renegotiation point of the house, if it comes up, is the appraisal.
Mm.
Yeah. So, we'll let you talk about the appraisal process a little bit.
Right. Generally, in kind of at like the surface level, an appraisal serves the purpose of giving an independent third party opinion of the value of the home and the condition of the home. It's not an inspection
No,
like
don't use it as your inspection.
what Jeff was talking about, because an appraiser is not a licensed home inspector. They're not looking at the same things or even as in as much depth
Yeah.
as a home inspector would be, but they're definitely doing a look over of the home to make sure there's nothing obvious that would make it that would render the home either uninhabitable or maybe present some safety concerns or some hazards. They're looking for that kind of stuff, but they're not definitely not doing stuff at the level that the inspectors are doing. The biggest piece
Yeah.
of the appraisal is the value. And why I said it's important that it's an independent third party opinion of value is because that's exactly what it is. The appraiser actually doesn't work for the lender and doesn't work for the seller. He works for you as the home buyer. You're going to pay the appraiser for the appraisal report. He's going to upload and provide that appraisal information to the lender because it is something that's needed and necessary to satisfy some of the conditions of the loan, some of those underwriting conditions. But at the end of the day, as a lender, I cannot have a direct conversation with an appraiser because it would mess with what I was talking about with the independent third party opinion.
Which all this came out because of
Yeah,
after '08, right?
there was a lot of riffraff doing things, pretty shady stuff.
Hey, let's make this house appraised for
Yeah.
this
Hey,
value,
buddy,
right?
here's $1,000. Can you give me the value on this? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was happening, and so nowadays the appraisers do not talk to the lenders. In fact, in most scenarios, there's another third party. You're like, oh, how many parties are there? There's lots of them. There's a third party that actually manages the relationship between the lender and the appraiser. It's called an appraisal management company, and so that's something I think that's important to understand is that the appraiser is not working for the lender. If the appraiser comes back with a value that we disagree with or a statement on the condition of the home, like something is subject to a repair,
Yeah.
like
Had those
I'm
before.
just as upset as you are as the home buyer. Maybe we knew it going into it, maybe we didn't, but I'm certainly not the one as the lender saying that these are the things that need to be done. This is the independent opinion of the appraiser. And so they are an important part of the process. Probably the most important part of the process ahead of closing is making sure we get that appraisal ordered in a timely manner,
Yep.
because in some markets they can take longer to complete that appraisal than they do in other markets. Western Washington's typically somewhere between 7 to 10 days to get an appraisal completed. Other parts of the state, you get out onto the peninsula or you go east of the mountains, you might look at 2 to 3 weeks. Just
Yep.
depends on how many appraisers are available in that market and who's willing to travel and whatever. There's a lot of variables at play, but you want to make sure that you're, again, educated and understand why the appraisal is important and why your lender is asking you to order the appraisal, to pay for the appraisal, to order the appraisal as soon as possible. Jeff and I were just having a conversation earlier today about this very thing. Because it is such an important part of the process and it often does take a couple of days, at least a week or two, maybe in some cases, you want to get ahead of it as quickly as you can. And you can't really move forward with an appraisal order until obviously you go under contract, you have an offer accepted to buy the home.
Yep.
And a part of the process that we haven't really talked about, but which is really what's important on the lending side, is there's loan disclosures. Your initial loan disclosures will be sent to you within 3 days of going under contract. Once you acknowledge those loan disclosures and you acknowledge that you do formally intend to proceed with the transaction, from a compliance perspective, that's when the lender can then order the appraisal. They can't just order the appraisal because, like I said, it's your appraisal without your permission to do so. And that's what part of that disclosure process serves for, is to give permission for the lender to order that appraisal. So I would say, like, don't overthink it. There's not really anything you need to really be worried about. If the value comes in low, I know Jeff's going to talk about that in a second. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It means that there's more opportunities for conversation and negotiation. If the appraiser says, hey, this missing panel of drywall needs to be repaired and replaced because there's a bunch of exposed wires showing, that's not your fault or the lender's fault. That's just the appraiser stating, hey, this is a potential safety concern. And for this loan to be approvable by the underwriter and by the appraiser, we need to have that fixed. That's where Jeff comes back into the picture. And I tell Jeff, I go, Jeff, here's the appraisal. This is what the appraiser's saying. We've had a couple scenarios where we've had to work through some stuff, right?
Oh yeah. I've
Sometimes
actually repaired drywall
Yeah.
before.
I've put
or put a new handrail in.
I put straps on a hot water heater. I mean,
Yeah.
we all do whatever it takes to make it work, but it's just something to be aware of and understand that the appraisal is really a part of the process that happens kind of at the beginning, and it kind of drags out for a couple of weeks. And then once that appraisal is back, there's really nothing that's preventing us, assuming the appraisal comes back good value, good condition.
Yeah.
There's really nothing after that between closing and being the owner of the new home. So
Yep.
it is important, but it's not like the end of the world if it comes back and it's not what we thought it was going to be.
Exactly. So if it comes in at value, great, we're moving on. Nothing
Yeah.
nothing to do there. If it comes in above value, it's awesome, but it
Yeah.
doesn't change your loan.
No.
It just means you have some instant
No.
more
According to
equity.
the appraiser's opinion.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's an opinion.
Yeah.
Like, it's what is a human opinion. Like you
Yep.
have some extra equity, but for the purposes of a purchase transaction, we're going to use either the lesser of the appraised value of the home or the contract sale price
Yep.
as the standard for what the price is for the home in the loan.
Yep. So doesn't change your
Yeah.
loan. But if it comes in low, we can negotiate it. Now, literally had this happen to me 2 days ago. Super frustrating. Had an appraisal come in $2,000 low.
That's the worst.
Like, that's probably a dime on a loaf of bread nowadays, equivalent,
Yeah.
somewhere around there, maybe even less, couple cents worth. It's very frustrating. In that case, if you do have the extra money, I always just recommend the buyer come up with either that extra money cash, or we kind of work with the lender to maybe restructure the loan a little
Yeah.
bit to make your closing costs maybe a little higher or whatever, just to cover that difference. Because if we let the seller know, hey, your home appraised low, now we've started this whole process that may not be worth it for just a couple $1,000s. It may end up, what we like to say, blowing up the deal
Right.
at the end of the day, and it's a home you really wanted. It's not worth the fight for the $2,000, at least not in my opinion. But if we're talking 5, 10, 20,000 or even more low, yeah, we're definitely going to be letting the seller know, hey, there was a low appraisal. We need to renegotiate the price. And this comes down to the seller can either choose to just drop the price immediately to
Yeah.
that, and we just move on. Now your loan's a little bit lower, closing costs a little bit lower,
There's a lot of ways to do it.
a lot of ways. Or they just say, hey, we'll meet in the middle. We're $20,000 low. We'll drop the price 10 grand, but now you need to come up with an extra 10 grand cash.
Yeah.
Whether you can or can't do that is going to be obviously very dependent on your situation and if you want to do that.
And
But
it
just
might not even be just $10,000 cash in that scenario, Jeff. You might just increase your loan amount by $10,000
yeah,
to
and it
cover
all
the
depends, because if you're not at your maxed out
Right.
value
Yeah.
right there, so
There's 100 different ways to do this, and I think again we're coming back. I feel like we have a theme. The theme is every potential home buying scenario is completely customizable to the situation and to the person buying the house.
there's lots of creative ways.
So many different ways to do
Yeah.
things, and that's what you should be looking for. That's what we want you to be looking for in a partner, is somebody that's going to advise and educate you
Yep.
through these parts of the process, because it's
Yeah.
not just straightforward. It
No.
really isn't.
It's not, and it can be stressful.
We could do 10 hours of video talking about appraisals and it still wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
I've sat in appraisal classes,
Yeah,
and I still
full day of appraisal people
Yeah,
talking
exactly.
about it. Yeah.
So just know we're going to get you through the process, but those are your two big outs, is really your home inspection and your appraisal. If we can't come to an agreement with the home seller during those two windows, you can walk away with your earnest money. We'll go back to looking for another home for you. It's happened to me. I mean, it's probably happened to every agent at this point, right? So it is what it is. It's part of the home buying process. That's why, and we're going to take this way back. If you're a renter and you've got an apartment with a lease and all that, we're working on some timelines. This is why I always coach my buyers. Never tell your landlord right away that you're buying a house,
No.
because they may cut your lease and start looking for a new renter. And let's say the home fails inspection and we're 2 weeks into the process and he or she wants you out in 30 days. Well, now we have 2 weeks to find you a home and close on it, or you're going to be homeless. which is
Yeah.
almost impossible.
Obviously, follow your lease agreement,
Yeah.
well, whatever you have to do to notify your landlord, but certainly counsel with Jeff or myself on
Yeah.
what that really means.
But those are the two big things we need to get through before we can start scheduling the moving trucks and talking about breaking leases and all that kind of stuff. But this is conversations that I'm going to have up front with you ahead of time, and we're going to work around those timelines and those time frames.
Right.
But
Jeff, I feel like now's a good time for the code word. What do you think?
uh,
If you made it this far, you deserve it.
well, a couple more things, then we'll give it to you.
Yeah,
How
put
about
that
that?
in your pipe and
All
think
right.
about it.
Okay, title and escrow. What does title and escrow do? Quick and dirty version. Title is the company that's going to look at the title history of the property you're buying and making sure it can transfer to you clean and clear. So that there's no tax liens that the seller didn't pay off that are transferring into your name, stuff like that. There's a lot more to title, and there's a reason why you're paying for a title insurance policy. But
You want-
again, that could be another 20,
Yeah.
30-minute video,
I'll give a 30-second explanation because I think it's important.
especially on the lending side.
Yeah, I mean the whole premise behind title insurance is the same as any other insurance policy. It's to protect you against something happening that you didn't expect to happen. Right? That's what insurance is for. And so title insurance is no different. In the event that you buy a house, you're the legal owner of the home, your name's on title, someone comes up, something comes up down the road, let's just say 2 or 3 years from now, a lien pops up,
Yeah.
right? Like you were saying, like sort of maybe property tax lien or contractor lien or something like that shows up on the home that you own, but it wasn't your lien to begin with. That's the reason why you have title insurance, is to
Yep.
protect you from liens being placed on the property that aren't your responsibility.
Yeah.
Same thing with like other claims to ownership in the home. That's happened before where like a will wasn't properly recorded and somebody thinks they own the home, but you're the ones living in it.
Yeah.
There's a legal issue there. And so your title company and your insurance policy that you get on the title of your home protects you from those kinds of things.
Exactly.
It's very important.
It
I
is
mean,
not
insurance,
something you want to skip.
yeah, you don't want to skip insurance generally. It's frustrating.
Yeah,
Compels
I get
money for all these
The
bad
best part about
drivers.
title insurance, though, it's a one-time fee and you're done.
Yeah,
It's not a monthly.
recurring premium.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
never thought about that, Jeff.
Yeah.
Way to be like an optimistic person. Thank you.
So you just pay that at closing, then you never have to worry about it again.
Mhm.
Escrow is going to be the company that collects your earnest money. So they're the neutral third party. You are not giving $10, $20, $50,000 cash to the seller when you
No,
deposit your
risky.
earnest money. Yeah, no. You're giving it to a escrow company. Escrow is going to collect all of your loan documents. They're going to schedule the signing. They're going to be your main point of contact
Yeah.
for that specific
And
transaction.
they're going to make sure like everybody's paying their fair share of the property taxes because the seller has to pay some. You're going to pay some as a new homeowner.
Yep.
They're going to make sure the utilities are credited properly. Like
Yep.
if you have a propane tank, they do a lot of stuff.
They do.
They just make sure everything's their job is to make sure everything's fair
Yep.
and even.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right, we've made it through all that. Escrow has scheduled your signing, which congrats.
God, you're going to have a sore forearm.
Yep, a lot of signatures. Be ready. It's going to take probably about 45 minutes, give or take, on
Yeah.
how many questions you have.
Bring some water.
Yeah.
Stay hydrated.
Exactly. We can get beers or wine afterwards, but not before.
No.
So you're going to sign probably 1 to 2 days, usually before closing day. Closing day comes, escrow's balance with the lender, everybody's all on the same page. Escrow sends your whole document package out to the county,
hmm
and that's going to be called, they're going to send it out for recording numbers. When the county gives us those recording numbers, that means the county has you as the legal owner of the
It's a
property.
big moment.
It is.
Yeah.
You are now the official owner, and we can meet up, and I can give you keys to your new home.
Yeah.
So that's
The county says it's so, then it is so.
exactly. That's one of the most exciting days for me.
Yeah.
Exciting day number one is meeting you, learning your needs, wants, your unique situation. Then second most exciting day is seeing it all come together at
Right.
the end. So,
It's amazing.
all right, what do you think? I mean, it's been in front of them this whole time.
Has it?
It has been. So your code word is right here. Be
2 words,
awesome.
actually.
Yep. 2 words.
2
Yeah.
words. Be awesome.
I think we threw them off.
So if you're interested in moving forward with the home buying process, that doesn't mean buying a house. That means going through the education, getting pre-approved, having the conversations to understand what's available, what's not available, what are the pros, what are the cons of all the different things that we talked about specific to your personal situation, go ahead and send either Jeff or myself a direct message, a DM, if you will,
Yeah.
with the words "Be awesome,"
Yeah, exactly.
and we will put you on the record
Yeah.
of being eligible for a what? Free
Free home warranty up to $500, which
free
will
appraisal.
get you just
Yeah.
about any home warranty
Yeah.
out there.
So we're talking like at least $1,000
Yeah.
in savings
Yeah.
on costs, which
Exactly.
is cool.
So you saved
Yeah.
$1,000 by watching us for an hour and 20-ish minutes.
Yeah, we'll see how long it ends up being.
Yeah, after editing.
Yeah, edit some of that out.
But yeah, thanks for watching. One last clarity point. You know, Brandon and I don't give each other kickbacks or anything like that. It's not like, hey, Brandon, I got a buyer for you if you give me $500, or, you know, there's none of that going on.
That's illegal.
Yeah, highly illegal.
It's highly illegal.
I don't do that with any of my home inspectors either. I have 2, 3, 4 home inspectors that I always recommend because they're just good at what they do. And I hope that by watching this video, you understand that anybody we recommend is because they're
We
awesome
recommend them,
people
yeah.
and they do a good job for you. And they're not giving us money or giving us snacks or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's
Well, that was
that's
fun,
about
Jeff.
it. Yeah, it
Let
was
us know
fun.
if you need anything else. We're always here
Yep,
doing videos and
would
talking
love
about
to chat.
title insurance.
Yeah. Get another person in for that one. But
Cool.
appreciate you for sticking with us this whole time. Be awesome. We'll talk soon.